Hello, welcome to another Informatica video tutorial. My name is Fernando Guerrero, and this time we are going to talk about how to load a file list dynamically in Informatica Cloud. Through this video, we are going to see the definition of what a file list is, what a parameter is, and what a parameter file is. Once we understand this concept, then we will see a demo, and then we have other reference. There is another videos that you can find from Informatica that explain what a file list is and the limitation of that file list. So I will give you the link to that video in the reference. For this tutorial, we are going to focus on how to load file list dynamically. So the first thing is like, what is a file list? Just a general concept. So when you have a flat file connection and you want to load a data file, you specify the name of the file. But what if you want to load 10, 15, 35 files? Well, instead of giving the name of the file that you want to process, you give the name of a file that contains the list of all the data files that you want to process. That's what we call a file list. We also have parameters. So in the mapping, instead of hard coding values to some fields, you create a parameter. It's basically a variable, and you will be able to assign values to that variable later at the mapping task level, or when your task is running. When you create a parameter, you need to check one field that basically is telling that you allow this parameter value to be overwritten at the execution time. That's really important. That's something that you have to remember, and we will use it for this demo. So what is a parameter file? Parameter file is a text file that has all the list of parameters that you created in your mapping and what is the value for each of those parameters. If you create a parameter and you allow this parameter to be overwritten at execution time, if you specify the value for that parameter at your mapping task level, and also you specify a value for that parameter in your parameter file, whatever value you specify in the parameter file will have a higher priority. The process always searches first at the parameter file for a value, and if it doesn't find any value there, then it's going to look at the mapping task level. And now we are going to have a video where we are going to talk about how to use all these concepts together and load a file list that are going to be changing in location every time. Maybe you have a process that requires to load different file lists every single time that is executed. Remember, even if when you are loading different file lists, all of them will have the same structure, the same data structure for all the data files. That's important. But the location of those files is going to be changing every single time that you execute your data task. So we will start working on the demo. Okay, so now we are going to do a little demo about how to load a file list where the file list itself and the files with data are located into a different location every time that you run your process. How those source files are generated and all the text files that we need for this demo, that is out of the scope of this demo. Here we are only focused on how to load the file list that is located in different locations every time that you run the process. And let me show you right now one example of how that will look. You see mine here. This is your parent folder for your flat file connection, and inside this parent folder you have a file list. This file list is pointing to two different data files that we want to process, and these files are located inside our parent folder. Well, imagine that you have a different process that runs every day, and this process generates the files that later your process is going to load. Okay, so we have this extra process that generates some files every day, and it places those files in a different folder every single day. So for example, here for today's date, we have this subfolder, and inside this subfolder we have a file list that tells us the location of the new folders, of the new files. Also, we have the actual data files, and we have a parameter file that is telling us what is the subfolder where the file is gonna be located, and is giving us the name of the file list. Remember, the process that generates all these files, that's out of the scope. We are going to focus on the process that loads these files and how to do it if these files are being generated every single day on a different location. That's the goal of this demo. So here in the demo right now, I have a simple source and a target. And in the source, you have to select your flat file connection. And normally in the source type, you want to select if you want to load a simple data file or if you want to select a file list. If you select file list, then you have to write here the name of the file list. And this is the value that you're going to be using every single time that you run your process. We want to change that file list every single time. So what we have to do is, in the source type, we select parameter. Then here in the parameter, that's going to create a new parameter. It's going to call it p source file list. And don't forget to check that you allow this parameter to be overridden at the runtime. This is very important. Okay, so we have right now our parameter that is for the file list name, and we specify that the source type is also a parameter. But we didn't give a name. We didn't create a parameter for this one. We just specify that it's going to be a parameter, and the actual parameter name goes for the file that you will want to load. Here on my target, I specify a flat file already, my flat file connection, and I have an object that is going to be created at runtime. So let me save this. I will save the name of this, copy the name of this mapping. And now I have to create a mapping task. And in the mapping task, that's where I am going to specify what kind of source I am going to use. Let me show you. So I'm going to create a new mapping task. That's a mapping task. I have to choose my runtime environment. And then in the step number 2, here is where you are going to specify what kind of source type you are going to be using. You are not going to be able to change this value on the fly. So once you specify it here, this is what your process is going to use every single time that it runs. So we know that we want to use a file list. Then here, this is for the parameter that we created. So it's asking us what is the name of the file list that we are going to use. Here you can specify any file that you want. In this case, I am going to specify right now the one that is here in the parent folder. I am going to specify that one. But we really don't care because this one is going to be changed on the fly every single time that you run your process. So just remember here the name of the parameter, okay? It's p source file list. That's the name of the parameter. So here we specify that we want a file list. We are not going to be able to change this one. We specify what is the file list, and this value will change every single time that we run the process. And how do you do it? Well, in your schedule, if you see in the schedule, you have here one section that is called parameter file. And remember, a parameter file, it's a file where you specify all the parameters that you created and you specify the value. So let me go back here. We have this parameter, and here we specify a value file list. We are using this flat file connection. So let me go here to my administrator. This is my flat file connection. So this is the parent folder for my flat file connection. So here, basically, I am saying, look at the file list that is located in this place. So let me go here. So this is my parent folder, and I have this file list. If I open this file list, we can see that we have the parent folder and the product. But I don't want to load this. Remember, every single time that I want to run a different file. For example, I have this subfolder that's for today process, and I want to load this one. This one is located in the parent folder, today's date, and then this is the name of the file. So what are we gonna do? Instead of specifying here in the schedule which parameter file you want to use, we are going to do that at the task flow level. And this parameter file is going to tell you which file you want to process. So let me go back here. Remember, this is we are inside the folder that we want to use, and here we have this is the parameter file. So right now we are not specifying what is the location of this parameter file, and we are not specifying what is the name of this parameter file. That's something that is going to be changing every single time that we run our process. So here in the parameter file, now we have the parameter that we created that tell us what is the file that we want to process. And here we specify, okay, I want to go to this subfolder and I want to load this file. So whatever we specify here, let me show you again. So here we specify this parameter, we assign this value, but this is pointing to the parent location. Here we are saying, you see the same name of the parameter, and we are telling, look at this place, look at this folder, and this is the file name. So when your process runs, these ones, the value that you specify in the parameter file, that's the value that is going to be used. If your process comes to the parameter file and doesn't find any value here, then it's going to use the value that you specify here. But the process always looks first, remember, always looks first at the parameter file, check what is the value for your parameter and use this value. If this is empty, then it's going to use this value. So, okay, so far we already specified here that it's going to be a file list. That's something that we're not going to be able to change. And we can finish this. We have a mapping task. Now, let's going to create a task flow, okay? So here in our task flow, we want to have our data task where we are going to load the information that we want. Let me choose my mapping task. Let me search for it. So this is the one that we created just a few seconds ago. Now in this mapping task, you will see that you have the input fields section. Here you can select what kind of inputs you have, okay? So we don't have anything here that we want to use. we go to the, let me close this one to avoid. We go to the task properties parameters, and here you see parameter file directory and parameter file name. So basically here you can specify where this file is located and what is the name of this file. And then this file has the location and name of your file list. So that's how it's going to work. So we are going to task property files, and we are going to add those two. Okay, so now we have those two input fields, and what I'm going to do is we need to pass some values to those input fields. So the first thing I will do is at the task flow level, remember that I mentioned, like, in this process we are simulating that every day we process some files from a different subfolder, and basically the subfolder has the subfolder name is the current date. So I want to create a temporal field that is going to have what is the current date. So let me create a temporal field. I'm going to create one. I will call it task flow underscore current date. It's gonna be a text. So I have it. So I need to pass a value to this temporal field. So I can create assignment step before our data task, and here in this assignment I will choose the temporal field that I just generated, and because this is gonna be something that is gonna change every day, you cannot hard code the value. You have to make it in such a way that if you run this process daily, you are going to be able to generate what is the current date every single day. So we want to say that we are going to use a formula, okay? And here I already have a formula that calculates the current date. Let me save it. So now we have this field that has the current date in the format that I want. I want it to be date, month, and year. Day, month, and year. So now here in my data task, remember we selected the mapping that we created, and the input fields. I have to assign a value to each of them. So in my parameter file directory, let me show you here something. Remember, this is our this parameter file is going to be changing every single time. The location and if you can make your parameter file always the same name, or you can change the name every single time. That's up to you. It's your process. Just to make it simple here, I will keep the parameter file name always the same, but the location of that parameter file is going to be changing. So what are the things that remain constant and what are the things that change? Well, the parent folder, that remains the same because this is related to our flat file connector. Okay, the subfolder is what is changed all the time. So in this case, we want to hard code what is the parent folder, and here we are not going to hard code the subfolder. That's going to be changing, but we created a temporal field that has the value of that subfolder. It's going to be changing all the time. So because it's changing all the time, we need a formula, and it's going to write this formula. Okay, so first thing, I will go to functions in the string because I want to concatenate my parent folder with the temporal file that I created. So I know that I know what is the parent folder. Oops. That's my parent folder. That's the same all the time. And then I am going to concatenate that one to the variable that has the current date, which is going to be changing all the time. So let me add it. So yeah, concatenating the parent folder and the current date. So for in this case, we have, this is the parent folder, and today we are at August 30. So this is going to be changing every single, the subfolder is going to be changing every day. So okay, that's going to be my value for my parameter file directory. Now for your parameter file name, if your file name is changing all the time, you can do something similar. But in this case, just to make it simple for this demo, I want to have always the same param name. So I come here, content, and it's gonna be user parameters text document. Okay, so that's going to be the value that I will have every single time. Let me save it. I will publish. Let me review that we have everything. We created the temporal field. It's text. In the temporal field, we specify the formula that is gonna give us what is the current date. And then in the input, we are specifying a formula that tells us the location of the parameter file, how that parameter file is changing, how the location is changing every single time. And we have the name of the parameter file. And then this parameter file is telling us that the location or the file list that we want to process is in this subfolder, and this is the file list from here. So those are the files that we want to load. So now we are going to run this task flow. So now the task flow is running, as you can see here, and we are gonna wait a little bit until this finishes running. So now has finished running. We can see that it was successful. Let's go to the subtask. That's what this mapping task. And I want to see which files we really process. Okay. So this is the log. And here in the log, it's gonna tell us that we read the data located in these files. You see? This is the today's date. So basically, it was able to load this file list, and this file list is telling us, okay, you go to this location. And here in the logs, we can see that it really went to those files. Well, this is how you use parameter files in combination with parameters and your task flow. If you want to load file lists that are going to be changing in location every single time that your process is executed. If you want to learn more about file lists, input parameters, and parameter files, you can check the following links. The first link is also to a video tutorial that talks about limitations and considerations that you need to have when using file lists. I highly recommend that video. If you have any feedback that you would like to send us, please write an email to supportvideos@informatica.com. Thank you very much for your interest at Informatica Cloud Solutions.